In a world where people tend to go out with their friends and family to have a little fun, there lurked an evil man named Louis Coleman. While he seemed like a kind, normal man from the outside, no one knew that there was actually a monster inside him. This shocking story made headlines when the news got out about all that he did to a beautiful young woman. It is sad that women today are not safe anywhere and can become victims of evil men like him. Downtown Boston, the place where this incident took place, is one of the most vibrant, convenient, and exciting cities in the United States of America. It is well known for being a friendly, livable place for everyone. But in such a safe and secure city, something very unexpected happened. No one knew the horrors lurking in the shadows for Jassy Correia. Jassy Correia, a beautiful young woman, was born in Praia, Cabo Verde. She was just 23 years old when she was brutally murdered. She was also the mother of one daughter, who was only 2 years old. What she thought would be the most memorable birthday of her life took a drastic turn. Correia, the mother of a 2-year-old at the time, went out to celebrate her birthday on February 24, 2019, with friends in downtown Boston. Shortly after 2 a.m., she separated from her friends and tried to get a ride home in an Uber XL. The Uber driver, who was waiting for another group in front of the club, pushed her out of the car, causing her to stumble onto the sidewalk. Prosecutors claim Coleman approached Correia while she was intoxicated, alone, and without shoes, and offered to give her a ride to her friend's apartment. Surveillance footage showed that Coleman drove a short distance away from the nightclub and parked there for a full 12 minutes. The captured video also showed Coleman driving to his apartment in Providence, Rhode Island, and getting out of the car without Correia. Shortly afterward, he returned with a blanket, threw her body over his shoulder, and dragged her to an elevator in his building, the U.S. Attorney's Office said. In the days that followed, the Fed said Coleman frantically Googled things like how to pull a tooth that isn't loose, a person can fit inside a suitcase, buy trash, barrel of oil, how to clean for embalming, turkey baster, and Target disinfectant bleach. He also ordered several items to help cover up the murder. In the early hours of February 28, 2019, Coleman was caught on video carrying a suitcase with the victim's body inside and lifting it into the trunk before leaving the state. He was eventually stopped later that day by Delaware authorities, who ordered him out of the car and asked if anyone was with him. He replied, "She's in the trunk," authorities said. This crime was senseless and horrific, and there is no doubt that today's verdict is fair. The brutality this individual, who faces life in prison, perpetrated cannot be justified by any rationale, according to FBI Special Agent Joseph Bonavolanta, who is in charge of Boston. Correia's body was in the fetal position and had bruises, a bloody face, and was tied with duct tape covered in baking soda. There is evidence to suggest she was also sexually assaulted, authorities said. The U.S. Attorney stated that Coleman's laptop and hard drive, which he used for all his Google searches, were among the various items found in his car that seemed to be part of his cover-up. These items included a pair of new, long-handled loppers. 4 months after a federal jury found Louis Coleman, 36, guilty of kidnapping, raping, and killing Jassy Correia in February 2019, Coleman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Coleman was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and holds a master's degree in applied physics. In a note published on the United States Department of Justice's online page, according to the Onda Criollo page this morning, the District Attorney of the state of Massachusetts justifies the sentence as follows. Jassy Correia was a vibrant and beautiful 22-year-old woman, mother of a daughter as a baby. Louis Coleman, a total stranger to her, kidnapped, raped, and strangled her to death. This sentence will never be able to ease the pain and suffering that Coleman inflicted on Jassy Correia that night. as well as her beloved family, her mother, her father, her brother, and so many others every day since February 24th, 2019. By his depravity and his horrible disregard for the life of Jassy Correia, Louis Coleman lost his right to live free in society. The prosecutor's note then describes how Louis Coleman kidnapped, raped, killed, and then tried to get rid of the body of Jassy Correia, who was found on February 28, 2019, inside a suitcase in the trunk of his vehicle on a highway in Delaware. 4 days earlier, in the early hours of February 24th, Jassy had disappeared in Boston after going with a small group of friends to a nightclub to celebrate her birthday. She was reportedly abducted by Coleman as she was leaving the nightclub. He killed and sexually assaulted her in the car before bringing her body to his Providence apartment, where he kept it for 4 days. At the age of 3, in 1999, Jassy traveled with her family to the United States. "We came looking for a better life," said her father, Joaquim Correia, upon hearing the sentence. But unfortunately, Jassy didn't find it. The mother, Salete Vicente, when confronted with her daughter's killer during the reading of the sentence, said to him closely, "For me, you are a monster, a heartless person." Contrary to what was announced by some American press outlets, Jassy's body was not mutilated. The denial came from the Massachusetts Attorney General. The evidence also points to strangulation and brutal beatings carried out by Louis Coleman, the alleged perpetrator of the crime, as the causes of Jassy's death. Another aspect that authorities investigated was where and when the death occurred. The evidence collected indicated that Jassy Correia's death did not occur in the criminal's apartment. Everything indicated that the criminal strangled the victim to death in his car and then transported the body to his apartment. In the criminal's car, there were signs that there was a struggle between him and the victim. The bruises and blood on Jassy's face, the wound on Coleman's face, and the broken glass in the car were evidence of this. Furthermore, other facts could indicate that Jassy's death did not occur inside the apartment. Facts recorded by video cameras in the criminal's building and images recorded at the moment the victim got into the car in Boston. The two left Boston at 2:15 a.m. on Sunday morning. They arrived at Coleman's apartment in Rhode Island at 4:25 a.m. The Boston-Rhode Island route can be done in 40 minutes. Arriving at the building where Coleman lives, he parks the car in the parking lot. He gets out of the car alone and heads to his apartment. Jassy, or her body, stayed in the car. A few minutes later, Coleman came back with a blanket. He wrapped it around Jassy's body and carried it into his apartment building on his shoulders. Once inside, he placed the body on the floor, dragged it into the elevator, and then drove him to his apartment. During this journey, Jassy's body seemed inanimate. It did not make any movement while being transported. During the 4 days, Sunday to Thursday, the cameras never recorded that Jassy had left the apartment, while Coleman would have left and returned to it several times. Later, he left and went to the Walmart store, where he bought several materials, namely a chainsaw, baking soda, which helps preserve a corpse and avoid the smell, pliers, products that eliminate DNA signals, gloves, candles, rolls of tape, and a large suitcase, which he used to transport Jassy's body. Louis Coleman III, who strangled 23-year-old Jassy Correia to death, was found guilty on Wednesday by a federal jury despite searching for several ways to cover up the murder, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. USA for the District of Massachusetts was announced. Joshua Levy, first Assistant U.S. Attorney, described Correia as a vibrant young woman who fell victim to a predator's deception. He tricked Ms. Correia into believing he would give her a ride and instead held her against her will, sexually assaulted her, murdered her, and engaged in a massive cover-up, he said in a statement. While this conviction cannot bring Ms. Correia back, today's guilty verdict brings some measure of justice to her and her loving family, who feel this devastating void every day. Coleman is required by federal law to serve life in prison in this kind of situation. With this evidence, the question arises: if Jassy had still been alive in the car at the time Coleman went to get the blanket, wouldn't she have run away from it and asked for help? Unless it is argued that she was in a state of unconsciousness. This hypothesis is unlikely. Evidence suggests that when she was transported to the apartment, she was already lifeless. However, within a few days, the authorities will investigate everything. Currently, there is some disagreement regarding the state of Rhode Island's jurisdiction, but the Federal Court of Massachusetts is getting ready to take charge of the proceedings. The Massachusetts Attorney General stated that since the case involves kidnapping that ends in death, it may be transferred to federal court, and the death penalty or life in prison will be applied to this kind of crime in the designated forum. And that is precisely what took place. He is sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, and he added that the Boston jurisdiction, where Jassy lived, is the most appropriate to judge the case, as her family will be able to attend the trial and certify that justice will be done, which is a comfort for them. Jassy Correia, who was only 23 years old and left behind a 2-year-old child, did not deserve this tragedy, much less her child. She left her house with some friends to celebrate her birthday, and a criminal hand prevented her from seeing her 2-year-old daughter again. Peace to her soul. What are your thoughts on this horrific story? Do you think it was her fault for accepting his offer to ride her home? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more crime stories. Take care. Bye.